Okay. Good evening. My name is Michelle Chang, and I am the Director of Education and Community Partnerships at the Frye Art Museum. So great to see everyone here. I would like to begin by acknowledging that the land on which we gather consists of the traditional territories of the Coast Salish peoples, specifically the Duwamish and Suquamish tribes, who have stewarded the lands and waters of what we now call Seattle since time immemorial. We extend our gratitude to their elders past and present, as well as future generations. So I'm delighted to be your host for today's panel discussion, which will explore creative community responses to domestic violence and share ways to address this violence. The panel will center the voices of people with lived experiences with domestic violence and discuss how art is an integral piece for people navigating their healing journeys. As an art museum committed to exploring the issues of our time and showcasing the transformative power of art, the Frye is honored to host this program. In facilitating this conversation, we hope to create an inclusive and welcoming space for our local and global communities. I would also like to thank our program partners, Take Heart You Are Not Alone, New Beginnings, and Path with Art for what I know will be a really meaningful discussion. Now let's take a look at a PSA from Take Heart You Are Not Alone, and then we'll hear from Zoe and Tanya, who helped launch a Billboard project we'll learn more about today.
If you were abused,
if you know a victim,
if you are a survivor,
or you know someone who is,
you are not alone.
help is out there.
help is out there.
Help
is out there.
Violence is real.
And it hurts.
It hurts.
But help is out there.
TakeHeartYouAreNotAlone.com is a special place where you can find help, hope, and inspiration.
The problem is real. The help can heal.
Good evening. I'm Zoe Alder-Ryan.
And I'm Tanya Sharp.
Together, Tanya and I formed Take Heart You Are Not Alone with the aim of using art to frame the issue of domestic violence. Take Heart was an outgrowth of a year I spent studying the issue of domestic violence with Women of the World, an organization formed by Global Washington. At the end of our year of study, we were asked to choose a form of advocacy around the issue. I chose to look at how art can be used to advocate for the very serious issue of domestic violence. During the pandemic, it has been called the shadow pandemic, due to the unprecedented rise in domestic violence incidents. I asked Tanya, who at the time was studying for her MFA, if she'd be interested in working with me on this project. Thankfully, she said yes.
Both Zoe and I believe art has the power to move individuals to social action, to influence, to entertain, and to educate. After some research that included reaching out to nonprofit organizations in King County who were working to help victims and survivors of domestic violence, we decided to do a Billboard campaign that would use art to draw attention to the issue of domestic violence. We partnered with New Beginnings, whom you'll hear from later in this panel, to advertise a new 24/7 domestic violence helpline, which they were in the process of launching.
We had three objectives for our campaign: to educate the public and raise awareness around domestic violence by providing educational materials in the form of articles, videos, and expert advice on our social media feeds. To illustrate the problem by, number two, the objective was to illustrate the problem by promoting the work of artists whose subject matter dealt with domestic violence. And the third objective was to advocate by stimulating conversations and educating the public on what individuals and organizations can do to raise awareness and encourage engagement around ways to end the scourge of domestic violence.
In addition to working with New Beginnings to publicize their helpline, this campaign could not have happened with our other partnerships we formed, including SaveArtSpace, DV Hopeline, David Martin from Cascadia Art Museum, Kendall for social media, Lamar for billboards, the Office of Arts and Culture, the City of Seattle Domestic Abuse Office for funding, Women of the World, Lisa Goodman for the introduction to the Frye Art Museum, and Laura Zeck at Zinc Contemporary for the introduction to SaveArtSpace and guidance in the public art campaign, Laurel McIntosh, a senior executive at Cairo 7 News, Shirley Tom, who refers to herself as the oldest broad in broadcasting, Morris Hayes for the music No Mas, and of course, Path with Art and Fry Art Museum.
Tanya and I were very humbled by how during the pandemic, so many organizations and individuals were able to pull together to help us make our vision a reality. It taught us that we can work together to achieve success if we all share a common vision, a belief in what we're doing, and a commitment to work together to resolve differences in order to reach our common goals.
We are happy to report our group effort resulted in a successful Billboard campaign, which began on October 4th with the placement of 10 billboards in Southern King County, which was identified as an area of great need for services for those affected by domestic violence. According to DV Hopeline statistics, there was a significant increase in calls during the month of October, which was a direct result of the Billboard campaign. Our campaign has demonstrated that help is indeed out there. And I'd like to take a moment and show you each one of the billboards that were displayed, including the artist's name and title. Starting with You Are Not Your Fear by Lee Leger. The Presence of Presence by A.C. Evans. A World Without Borders, Tracy Lester Conde. Breaking Free by Majeli Trapiro. Head Tripping, 1, Lily Muller. He, She, LGBT, BT, Nino Kuo. But is fantasizing about killing ever okay, Marika Passion. An Eye for Color, Tracy Lester Conde. When to Say When, Delaney George. And lastly, United by Deborah Lott.
With that, we'd like to turn it back to you, Michelle.
Thank you. Now, thank you for your words, Zoe and Tanya. Now I'd like to introduce Holly Jacobson, CEO of Path with Art.
Thank you, Michelle. Thanks for the introduction. So for those of you who don't know, Path with Art, it works at the intersection of social impact and the arts. So when Michelle contacted us about this incredible project and brought it to our attention, naturally we wanted to participate. Path with Art's mission is to foster the restoration of individuals, groups, and society from the effects of trauma through arts engagement and community building. And so I'd like to, again, shout out to Michelle, Caroline, and the Fry for hosting this important discussion. We're really lucky that the Fry is a community hub to discuss things that are arts related and civic related. And I would also, of course, like to thank Zoe and Tanya for visioning this empowering and impactful community project, which has brought us all together tonight. And a specific shout out to Path with Art's Artistic Director, Shara Waba, for helping us produce this event from Path with Art's side, and also for the slideshow that we saw earlier. We really believe firmly at Path with Art, and I think everyone involved in this project, that art can play a key role in both individual and society recovery, and that right now it is critical more than ever. Some of the stats that Zoe and Tanya shared earlier, and that you saw on the screen in the slideshow that she put together, are really staggering. In Washington State alone, over 41% of women and about 32% of men experience intimate partner violence, intimate partner rape, and intimate partner stalking in their lifetimes. In 2020, domestic violence offenses comprised about 50% of all crimes against individuals. Those are staggering numbers. From the national scale, and this is pre-pandemic, from 2016 through 2018, the number of intimate partner violence victimizations in the United States increased 42%. That was pre-pandemic. And then in the United States, more than 10 million adults experience domestic violence annually. So what are we going to do about it? And what role does art play? We're going to explore that tonight. And I think one of the things that this project really illustrates is what two women did about it, Zoe and Tanya, by galvanizing a bunch of people to participate in a solution. And gender-based and domestic violence has unfortunately played a prominent role in many of our lives. Those statistics are just people's lives. And many of us, whether we realize it or not, know a lot of the folks involved in those statistics. And at Path with Art, we have seen how every day, really, how survivors have harnessed the power of art, not just to rebuild their sense of self and their lives, but to thrive. Tonight, we will feature 4 panelists who have all come together through this project, 4 talented, strong, thoughtful women, each with a distinct relationship to the project, 2 of the artists whose work was featured on the billboards that Tanya showed you earlier, the director of the Domestic Violence Hope Line, and a social worker from Housing Hope who refers families and clients to our programs to connect them to art as a means to heal. So I'd like to start by introducing Nina Kuo, a multidisciplinary artist based in New York City, so representing the East Coast tonight, because we know this is a national, actually it's an international issue that we all need to address. Nina creates artwork about fictional and conscious historical references with an individual modern language in her expressions. Methods of painting, sculpture, multimedia, and montage have long-lasting experimental effects as she branches out in art installation, animation, videos, and book design. Nina witnesses and reveals discoveries of global and feminist realities while taking risks in interpreting newer art idioms. So shout out to Nina. Artist Tracy Lester Conde, a dear friend of mine who I was fortunate enough to meet through Path with Art, owes a lot of her emotional survival, as she describes it, to the process of art making. Tracy started quite young with art, jumping into pages of creation, a method used to escape the reality of extreme domestic violence that was a through line throughout her life. Having dabbled in endless types of mediums, Tracy has strongly gravitated towards painting and experimenting with complementary and contrasting colors. According to Tracy, a canvas can be anybody's therapist, someone that's finally there to listen with undivided attention. She has also recently begun to take her writing more seriously, and what makes it more interesting for Tracy is the realization that we can vent and heal through different characters. Joan Daves is a social worker who works as a family support coach at one of Path with Art's 55 social service partners, Housing Hope. Joan supports families who have been identified as homeless by locating safe housing and assisting them until they are self-sufficient and able to move out. She works closely with Path with Art to bring folks gently into a healing community where they can be seen and heard and can begin again and further their process towards healing. And last but not least, Jacqueline Gonzalez, the director, I hope I didn't butcher that name because I got it right when we were talking earlier, is the director of DV Hope Line at New Beginnings, which is the hotline that you see on the billboards. And Jacqueline has over 2 decades of experience working in the social work field with families, children, survivors of sexual assault, intimate partner violence, poverty, and other social injustices that have disproportionately affected marginalized communities. Jackie was the director of community programs in the Renton Area Youth and Family Services and previously worked in Austin, Texas for 11 years as the Travis County Health and Human Services and Social Service Programs Manager. So with that introduction to these wonderful women, I would like to start with you, Nina, and ask you what brought you to this project? Why did you want to get involved?
Well, I feel like when I created these images, the one image that of the half man and then half woman, holding their hand is a secret. It's the exposing of the secrets. In my experience, these billboards, I call them murals, they attract huge audiences, and I'm honored because they're like panoramic reminders. They are like ads. They're super watchdogs in the fragmented societies. They offer messages that are direct and subliminal. Yes, that art is an open door, but they echo a way to find good solutions. These issues are hopefully encouraging, soul-searching, and that's why I wanted them to be black and white and cinematic. The experience of seeing the phone numbers with, I think, the logos show that there's a love for, community people, that we need that. We need to know that we can go for help. We need to know that because, I worked in those fields, and people aren't there. They need conversation, and I feel like that with my art, it's my role and my kind of my calling to show the didactic yet the seductive sense of revealing these social problems. We have to set up the new dialogues of how the working class neighborhoods that you all I think know about can be not just a decorative element in the murals, but they actually inspire problem solving. And I feel like they're very deliberate, just like those graphic graffiti artists. They sneak up on you and they bam you big time. This is how we prevent those crises.
Thank you. And it's a really powerful image that you created. It's kind of the seems like one of the highlighted images that the Fry selected for this.
Oh, thank you. I thought everything blended so it was like cool and very just sensitive and
well, thank you. So maybe on Jackie, how have you seen the issues around domestic violence change during the pandemic?
Hi, Holly. First of all, thanks so much for inviting me to be here tonight. I'm just absolutely thrilled to be here and thrilled about the project and the Billboard campaign that we have created. To answer your question, it says the pandemic has increased the frequency and intensity of abuse. During the lockdown, home-based schooling, and with more people working remotely, survivors have been sheltering in place with their abusers for long hours and with fewer ways to alleviate the control that's being bestowed upon them. COVID contributed to the social isolation, lack of a time to be alone for the survivor, our physical or mental just brain space from time to be away from the person that's causing harm. Thus, this increased danger and trauma for the survivor. We saw the DV homicide rate go up in King County last year as a result of COVID and sheltering in place with your abuser. There's also survivors had fear of COVID transmission. So many times people were not willing to go to shelters or to seek, they were reluctant to seek shelters. And so this provided the abusers with more excuses to exert control over the survivor. For survivors who had already left abusive relationships, what we saw is that there was delays in the court system. So if you were trying to get a protective order, if you were looking for child custody or filing for a divorce, then that further delayed the process that we saw, all affected by this shadowing pandemic, that we have. Survivors lost their jobs. I had their hours cut during the pandemic, putting their independence and freedom at risk. But the pandemic did shine a spotlight on our exasperated the acute danger and challenges that survivors face each and every day.
And how have you seen the billboards play a role in that? I know Tanya mentioned that you have seen a bump in increase in response.
Yes.
Can you just tell us what that has meant for your hotline?
Oh yeah, so happy to do that because the billboards, we launched the DV Hope line on July 5th. And in October, by October, we saw an increase in our calls all of a sudden. We were getting calls, but it's just one day after day that we noticed that once the billboards were launched October 4th, I want to say by October 10th, when I pulled numbers, it seemed like there were at least 10 more calls per day due to the billboards being up. We quantify this by asking people if they wanted to, our callers, if they wanted to share how they find out about us. And the people that did share with us that they found out about it by seeing the billboards were very impressed to know that with that short amount of time, that's how people were getting the information that they needed, was seeing the billboards.
That's encouraging, really encouraging. Joan, you're also a social worker and here is kind of a clinical social worker who has been referring a lot of folks to art programs, particularly our art programs. Why do you think the arts are a powerful tool for healing? And how do you see that? Like, why do you refer your clients to the arts?
Mm-hmm.
What differences?
I believe that art is a powerful tool for healing, especially for people who have experienced trauma. When someone engages in the creative process, they're simultaneously processing their trauma and starting the healing process at the same time. And you can see the transition in folks is obvious when I'm working with them. They become more hopeful. They're more willing to try new things. They're able to step out of their comfort zone a little bit more. They have expanded thoughts about themselves and they start believing in themselves and their abilities.
So it's really marked changed.
Oh yeah, mm-hmm, absolutely.
And do you have any theories on why that might be? I have theories, but I'm not actually a panelist, so I would love to hear your theories.
I think the creative process changes the outlook, that definitely the hope arises. And I'm challenging my folks all the times with try something, let's try this. And the folks that have been through an art class, okay, I'll try this. I'll step out of myself. And they just start to heal, and they really go so far beyond even my expectation of what they could do. I have an example. The very first gal that I referred to a Path with Art program, when she came in, she was stable, but I just felt like she could do so much more. And she has started on a weight loss journey. She's up to 200 pounds lost. And she took a podcasting class with Path with Art after she had taken some other classes. And her and another gal got together and they started a podcast called Women in Leadership, Body, Mind, Soul, and Business. And she told me today they have 100 downloads and 700 to 1,000 live views. And wow, she's so awesome. And that's just one example of a DV survivor who came in to our housing, took a bunch of Path with Art classes, and has just grown exponentially.
Well, I think that's a really great segue to our next panelist, Tracy Lester Conde, who is also an artist like Nina and a survivor. And Tracy, you're not just a talented painter, but also a thriving survivor of trauma and DV yourself. And as a survivor who has openly talked about how art has helped you heal, how has it helped you heal? And what has been that journey for you?
Well, for me, I consider there being at least two parts of the healing process that creating art can help with. Choice of colors and textures can help us, which I sometimes call release, and then there's the emotional uplift. Okay, example, if you're feeling angry, you might gravitate toward dark colors or something with rough textures, which often will help to release some of our dark emotions that we don't want to hang on to. And then afterward, you may find comfort in gravitating towards some more vibrant and soothing colors and textures. And a certain yellow will release serotonin from your brain, for example, whereas a different hue of yellow might actually make you feel agitated. Color therapy has actually been used to heal many different ailments around the globe for hundreds of years now. If that makes sense.
Well, yeah, I mean, it is scientific too. And as you're pointing out, there's science around that. And I'm wondering what it meant for you, Tracy, to see your work on the billboards. Cause I mean, I know, cause I remember when you texted me that you went and saw the work, your work up on the billboards. Just tell me about the process with everyone else. So.
Oh, how could I not, right? Well, first of all, I'm quite honored to be invited into this project. Very honored. Okay, but I think even more victims who are kept isolated still need to go out to the store and hopefully to needed appointments. So my hope is these billboards will reach those victims. And I hope it will give them a way to understand there are advocates out there to help plan a safe escape if they need to leave a dangerous situation. I hope my image will catch their eye enough so they'll notice the message that's next to it.
Yeah. And going back to you, Nina, you'd previously stated that art can provide an open door and keep folks accountable. You referenced that open door earlier, but can you unpack those statements a little bit more? What you mean by open door and keeping folks accountable?
Well, I think that, in the Asian population and Asian Americans, there's a lot of, fear and shame. So knowing that what Tanya said, there is agencies and private individuals that can help mentor these individuals, and also for the abusers too. Sometimes it's all related in my experience from severe chronic problems, emotional, and like Joan said, economic problems and all kinds of discrimination going on. So all these ongoing problems are meshed together. So we got to keep the door open because families break up. I've seen, and it just becomes like a vicious cycle. So having all of you understand that and having the billboards there, I think opens the door totally and brings in so much more awareness. And that's really the key to everything now, more awareness.
Thank you, Nina. Tracy, going off that same theme, how in your life, just personally, has art, what open door has art created for you and your healing journey? You mentioned some scientific way, that I know color features prominently in your work, and the audience can surely see the vibrant colors that you use above. But outside of color theory, what has been the impact for you as a person who has dealt with multiple traumas, complex trauma, and also as a person who has come out on the other side as an empowered artist?
Well, like I said, it kind of like it helps you release your emotions that you have pent up inside of you, and then it uplifts you, you know. I notice when I haven't worked with my colors for a while, then later I come and then I start like dabbling in them again. It just uplifts me, you know, it just makes me feel better. And also Path with Art has actually given me opportunities where I end up participating in things that I didn't realize I could participate in, you know, like speaking, well, like like this event, for example, you know.
Yeah,
Yeah.
art opens lots of doors, I think, for sure. Joan, I see you nodding with what Tracy's in response to what Tracy's saying. Does it strike any chords for you?
Yes, because that's exactly what I see in my folks, and I see the potential that they have. But when they've taken a class and they tell me about the colors, and they say somebody, you know, looked at their art and they're amazed at what they put on that page. And then, you know, an opportunity comes up and the hand goes up. Yeah, I'll try that. And I see that all the time.
And you, Jackie, coming from your position in this equation?
I think that art resonates with people. It resonates with everyone around. It's some way that we can connect by looking at another person's perspective, and what they're saying to us is something that maybe in our deepest part of our emotions that we were never willing to express. So art kind of uplifts those feelings and then put them out there for a connection with people throughout. When you walk around and you see different people, different lives, stories, different walks of lives that look at art and recognize that that's one way that I can express myself. That is one way that comes to me naturally, to be able to want to create something that tells my story. And that's what I see with the survivors that call the DV Hope Line, is being that listening ear to hear and to share a story. That's the power of the speaking communication, which art does so very well. So I thank each and every one of the artists that are here. Their work was so thought-provoking to think about how people experience domestic abuse, domestic violence, and all different facets, you know, in this county and in society. So it speaks to us all.
And Jackie, with the going on the Hope Line itself, what are your top goals? Like, walk through the process of someone calls the Hope Line. And I think I understand the reason why the Hope Line was created. It might be interesting for folks to share, for you to share a little bit about why the Hope Line is so important, and even how Tanya and Zoe kind of came to find you. There's more need than a lot of hotlines can support. And I think that's how your program, the DV Hope Line, was created, correct?
Yes, absolutely. And I'm so glad that Tanya and Zoe found us, truly, because we can be so much more together and make so much more of a profound statement on this movement to end gender-based violence. The Hope Line came about because when we did focus group with survivors, we found out that the system was very fragmented, that people were having to call several different numbers. There was lots of DV helplines that are out there, which is great, but people are having to call several different ones for different resources. So once you're given a resource, then where do you go? How do you navigate the system? So the Hope Line was created to have one number in King County that people can call, and that can be the front door. As I think Nina mentioned, an open door, and we want to be a front door, maybe not and definitely not the only door, but the front door for if someone calls us, then we can tell you about other resources. We can provide emotional support. We can do safety planning around what's going on with your situation, perhaps to make it safer for you by talking around the things that are going on in your life. We can also do DV education for loved ones of survivors that call. The DV Hope Line is there for survivors, friends of survivors, loved ones of survivors, men, women, children. We really try to reach out to marginalized communities, BIPOC communities, LGBTQ communities. We want to make it safe for people to call us. So the Hope Line is mainly, this vision for so that survivors could call and get the support that they are requesting at that time. We are also open to, we also provide some support for those who are causing harm in the relationship, because we recognize that in different points in time, a survivor may have been also a person causing harm in a situation. So we really want to look at community healing and not not just excommunicating someone who we want them to have the support that they need so that they can heal and we can build a better community.
Wonderful work. I appreciate your work. Tracy, looks like you want to add to that. No.
No, I was thinking on a different thing.
What did it make you think of?
I was thinking about messages that I would give to someone that's stuck in a bad situation. Like, it would be like, always stay at least 2 steps ahead of your abuser. Never let them know that you're smarter than them. Take notes of their behavior patterns, but never call them out, because that's when they get more dangerous.
It sounds like tips for survival.
Yeah, I think about those
because
of course, went through it.
And
yeah,
and how would you say, as someone who's come out of that situation, what are the tips for moving from that survival mode to a thriving mode, to finding back yourself where you can express that you're smart and that you have something to say? What?
If you need, okay, absolutely plant your own seeds of worthiness, right? Rewatch this video and take notes. Keep them hidden in your pocket if you need to, and study them between daily routines or even while you're riding the bus, for example. When you feel anxiety, slow your mind down to match your breathing. Okay? Take any bit of energies used toward worries and fears and redirect them. Envision what your life would look like if you weren't being bullied, okay? For example, my first vision was to feel safe when I rested my head on my pillow, okay? Powerful, loving thoughts are what will get your mind strong again. Your mind is your most powerful tool and is the thing that cannot be physically taken from you. And remember, you're never required to reveal what you're actually thinking. Your abuser doesn't actually believe you're dumb. Insults are slung to distract you from your true power, and your mindset can drain you. So focusing on uplifting thoughts can help counter the negative ones. The average person does not endure the things you are subjected to. You are one of those strongest people that there are. It's just hard to realize it when you're being pushed so close to your breaking point. Always remember, when one door closes, another will open, just as when one day ends, the next one will begin. It's how life works. So please try not to fear the change that you have ahead of you if it's what you need. Okay.
Are these sounds like powerful mantras, Tracy? Is this what you've used? Is this what you've developed, or did someone?
This is what I've experienced.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And especially taking note to my abuser's patterns, and to not let him know that I was a few steps ahead of him. This is what kept me safe as I strategized my escape plan. I'll call it my escape.
Wondering if any of our other panelists have thoughts around this. Thank you, Tracy, by the way. Thank you for sharing.
No, you're welcome.
I just say that a lot of these issues, you need a team in place, not just the social workers, but certain types of neighbors, friends, people of all ages. It's not just a generational issue. So I think if Jackie, you've got and all of you have such great skills. You have originality, and I think that's a lot of it. You know, being quick, as Tracy had mentioned, the spiritual side is so evident. You're passionate about all your, you know, what your individuality. It's so impressive, and it shows in your work. I mean, the colors and so forth, and it all makes sense to me. And I think it kind of blossoms in that way.
Colors make me feel good.
I have a question for all of you, which is, and then I want to get to some of the questions that are coming in through the Q&A. But one of the things, there's a quote that we use at Path with Art by a Cubist painter, Georges Braque, that says, "Art is a wound turned into light." And as Tracy said, art can be a wound turned into light, and it's not always a wound, but it can be a wound turned into light. And one of the things that this discussion does, that Fry giving us a space for this discussion, and Tanya and Zoe creating this project, is bringing things out into the light through art. But why is it important, and what can benefit from bringing these issues into the light? How is that important? I feel like that often we keep a lot of the difficult things in our life. There's a lot of shame wrapped around it. There's a lot of it, so it stays in those shadows. It's even called the shadow pandemic, right?
Mm.
So I'm wondering if anyone wants to talk about the value of bringing up these issues into the light, and also the difficulty of that.
If you don't, it's like you're going to stay stuffed in the closet and you'll be forgotten. You know, when you bring it to light, people start to notice, and then a network can start to build. Yeah. Otherwise, you're stuck alone. Yeah.
Sorry, Tracy.
I'm done. Go ahead. Thank you.
I totally agree with you, Tracy, around when she's bringing it to light. More people are aware of what's going on, but as a social justice issue, not only are we aware, but we're able to make better systems for ourselves, better support systems that are more responsive to what is needed at the time, things that provide some variety or some discretion in how it's done, not just one size is going to fit all. This is what happens that you need to do. This is the process that you have to go through. But that there's an awareness, there's a community of thought around and thoughtfulness around how we do things. So the more we talk about it, the more that people's stories become unhidden, the more we're able to address those things that are not said or that we dared to say in front of others. And then once we cleanse that, we cleanse it with creating a system that's going to be more reflective of us all in the experiences that we had. So I see art as lifting up a social justice issue that needed to be heard and needed to have change.
I think it's wonderful that people are starting to make their own systems that work for each other, instead of just settling for a mold that doesn't fit us, you know.
Got a question from Timothy Bridge. wanting to know how can we break the cycle of domestic abuse and violence, gender-based violence.
Probably by starting by doing things like this, events like this, Yeah.
I would, yeah.
Go ahead, Jackie.
I would add, be an ally. Be an ally to someone. Be that resource person. Be a listening ear for someone. If they need to talk, be available, or let them know you're available. Another thing is, as a resource person, if someone is trying to lead, or if there's a stand and they need support, then what is it? How can you support? The person, do the kids need to come over? If I call you, or you have clothes at your house that I can wear or that can use, how can you be a resource, for that person? So I think there are multiple ways that we all can get involved and be a part of the solution, because it is a community issue of us trying to end violence in our community, domestic violence, and gender-based violence that we see.
And help taxi people around to catch up with their errands, because it takes all day on the bus to do one little errand. It might be important, but one errand your whole day, and if you have kids, it's ridiculous and it wears you down. Yeah.
Speaking from experience, right?
Can you tell? Yeah.
Do you have thoughts on this as well, Joan?
Yeah, I think sometimes it's just being there, not talking yourself, but just being a listening ear, no judgment. And, Tracy's right. We're out in a very rural area, isolated. And sometimes folks just need one small thing. A mom runs up here and she needs one more quarter for the laundry. You have a quarter, she's good to go. It's just something small sometimes, not a huge project.
I could share a glimpse of what it's like a day is like for someone experiencing abuse. Those being abused tend to remain in a hypervigilant stance, as you never know what kind of surprises each day will bring. Being the victim of domestic violence is very exhausting. I was in a constant state of fatigue, yet I still had to tend to 4 young children. This is why a lot of victims stop making it to family functions. They are literally out of steam, plus they are being strategically isolated from friends and family. Here are a couple of scenarios that show just another day in the life when you're being abused, okay? Broken. I remember the moment fairly well. I was still in the bathroom right after he shoved me for no good reason. I was 9 months pregnant as I picked myself back up off the floor. I looked in the mirror. The sparkle had been removed from both of my eyes. Broken spirit stared straight back at me. Okay, then this one is desperate for sleep. Huge pine trees sheltered me from the heavy midwinter snow as I lay curled up on an old wooden bench, which was ironically right outside of my own bedroom window. It started when he came home from his night shift dinner break. I desperately longed for a safe place just to lay my head for at least a few good hours after being rudely awakened by a cup of hot tea unjustly splashed into my face. I grabbed my shoes and winter jacket. That's how I ended up on the bench. That was normal. I mean, not normal, but a common day for me.
That sounds exhausting.
Yeah.
I also hear that you're proving to us that you are now painting with words.
Mm-hmm. And writing too. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Got another question, which is a question for Joan, which is, what's the name of that podcast? If people wanted to listen to that podcast.
Mm-hmm. It's called Women in Leadership, Body, Mind, Soul, and Business.
And how would they find that? As a Luddite here, how would you go about finding that?
I think it's on Facebook because I share your lack of technology and whatnot, but I think it's on Facebook.
Okay, Tracy, nice to meet you. My name's Melissa. I'm also a victim of domestic violence, and I consider myself a survivor now. And I don't want to talk about my details, but I want to tell you that every single word you said spoke to me. And the word that I want to express the most is broken, because I know I'm not alone and I have a support system, but I still feel alone. But broken is the word that describes me. And I am fighting to be unbroken. And so keep doing what you're doing. Because we need to inspire other women. Good job.
Make sure you rewatch this video, because
I will.
Yeah,
I was actually
there's so much in there.
And I mean, I've tapped into every possible resource and tool. And if I had a lot of money, I would open a trauma center devoted to victims of domestic violence. And it would be an open building with windows where people could dance and they could make artwork, and they could go there when they can't get in to see a therapist, a trauma therapist, and they could go and express themselves. They could play music. They could hit on drums, you know. Anyway, that's my dream. Back to you.
Well, all of that I find is healing. Yes, yes.
Melissa, we actually are opening up an art center at Path with Art, which will be across from Seattle Center here in Seattle, if you're located in Seattle. And it will be free and open. And if you reach out to us at Path with Art, we can let you know how to connect. So Tracy, any other advice as someone who is, like I said, gone from a place of feeling very broken to what I would describe you as very thriving?
Like I mentioned, like probably before you got here, you have to plant your own seeds. If no one's there for you, you have to plant your own seeds of positiveness to help counteract the negativeness that's slung at you. But like I said, just rewatch the video and you'll hear all that. Okay.
I will. Thank you so much.
Okay.
You're such a beautiful
It's been nice
woman.
talking to you. Pardon?
Yeah, you're such a beautiful woman. Thank you so much for being strong. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Melissa, for being strong. It takes a lot of courage to speak up, and it's really powerful to speak up and share your story. And I think bring it out into the light and out of that place of shame. So brava and well done.
Melissa, keep fighting, stay strong, love your spirit, and feed it and give back to yourself. When you mentioned dancing, that really touched me, because I like to dance. Even though I do Zumba and I have to go by the steps, I try. But keep fighting, stay strong, and utilize your support system as much as you can, and grow it. I wish you all the best. Yeah.
Thank you so much. I hope to dance with you someday.
I would love that.
Zoom does make some things possible.
Yeah.
We've had a few dance parties on Zoom.
I see another project happening.
Yes.
And I have like plants, that are very low maintenance. You just they're air plants or just cactus.
Joan, do you have any advice for Melissa?
I love your dream. I think it's great to have dreams like that out ahead of you. You never know what might happen. I think your spirit's awesome. And, I hope they have some services out there for you in Nebraska, but I would definitely get in touch with Path with Art. They're awesome to work with. They're very gentle, and they push you a little bit, I think. My folks that have done lots of their programs, they start out and they love it. They're just doing wonderfully. I wish you the best.
Thank you. I can tell you though, as 20 years of this, I can tell you that I was a very creative person in many ways. And I will tell you that domestic violence can mute all of these beautiful qualities in people. And so that's why we need resources like what you're doing. it's like a safe space. It's a safe place to go. And it, even outside of domestic violence in a post-pandemic world, it's just going to be so necessary and needed.
One of the really, Tracy talked about this a little bit, but one of the, I think, reasons that art works so well, there's lots of reasons, but that art is a great vehicle for healing. It's not the only vehicle, but it's a powerful vehicle, is that when you create something, and Tracy speaks so eloquently about this, you are choosing. Now, when we are living in a world due to, our circumstances, be it a very destructive domestic violence situation or a pandemic where things feel out of our control, to be able to make that choice that you're choosing what colors and you're choosing what words can be really empowering. It can be really empowering and validating. So I think you said you had a creative practice before. Please do get to it. It's in you, and it's not even expensive to do. So
I recently purchased a set of drums, but again, like I work in healthcare, and I work with women with pelvic pain. And so for me to have developed pelvic pain because of trauma and to have the deepest insight to what my patients go through, I can't tell you what it feels like to be on the other side and both sides. I was a compassionate practitioner before, but this has taken me to the deepest level. And I will tell you, I will make my dream happen, because there are so many people suffering in so many ways, and their capability to make awesome things happen in the world are hindered and stopped because of abusive people. And if we don't teach this stuff to our kids early on and teach them the warning signs of toxic people, they're doomed. It just takes one person. Just one person. And that one person I was exposed to at age 17, and that ruined it for me.
So keep getting on that, get yourself on that healing journey. I think you're taking the right first steps, and I'm really glad and you obviously are a very courageous and brave person for speaking up. Thank you. And I hope that
thank you guys for all you do. Seriously, you guys are the best, and just keep doing it. Seriously, it's just so wonderful.
I think you're bringing up a really important point, Melissa. Melissa brought up a very important point, and that because things often do lurk in the shadows, we don't always know who might be dealing with domestic violence and who might not. And there is another question, which is that given this pandemic has created isolation for people, that appears to have increased, that we know has increased or encouraged domestic violence. Can we believe this aspect will be reduced when the pandemic is in our rear windows? And I'll ask the experts of Joan and Jackie that question. What I found staggering when I looked at some of the statistics was that there was such an increase between 2016 and 2018 in domestic violence pre-pandemic. But when the isolation goes away, how would we answer that question? Will it be reduced when the pandemic is in our rear windows?
I think that what we know is that domestic violence exists and is going on. I think at the rate that it will continue is something we'll need to see, because we know that it's there. Being in the pandemic, what happens is that we knew that people were sheltering in place. We knew things were closed as far as there was a different way and style of receiving services. So all of that was new and different. And so we did see something heightened that happened that brought out things that we can count. But as far as it going decreasing, whether that's in frequency or in numbers, then that's something we'll have to wait, and see about how it's going to affect. Will people continue to find creative ways for being able to connect with others and let someone know about your story, to let someone know, reaching out for that help? How will we continue to do that? I think it's really what we'll want to know and be able to look at and see. How can people continue to feel safe and reaching out?
Thank you.
I agree with Jackie. I guess I wish and I hope there is a decrease. We're not seeing it yet. It's difficult still to find mental health care around here. I think people are adjusting to a new way of receiving services, like Jackie said. So Zoom is kind of like a normal thing for the adults and for the kids to get on Zoom with their therapist. It's kind of a new way that, and those services are increasing, which helps. I said we're out here, we're kind of isolated out in this very rural area, but if we can have the internet going and get a therapist online, then great, let's have that. And the family's connected with the services that they need. I don't know, I think some challenges are always going to be there. I don't know, I guess I'm hopeful.
I think that's a great theme to end on, which is what gives you hope. And we have about 5 minutes left. So if we can just take a quick answer on what gives you hope right now for the future, and how can we bring hope into this issue, and for folks like Melissa and others. I'll just start with you, Nina, and we'll just kind of round table. How does that sound?
I think people have more time now because they're because of the kind of lockdowns, or the ability to get their own life focused on their health and so forth. So I think it's just a portion of people are eating better, exercising, and that's a really big issue too. There's more awareness about that, and education for the betterment of what, like Tanya and Tracy had said. I think that's a really big first step of keeping your body and your mind pure. And if you have that, then you're not going to follow the addicted and become addicted to something else. So not one addiction replacing the other addiction.
Tanya Sharp says, from Take Heart, You're Not Alone, says what gives her hope is people sharing their stories so we feel more connected. Joan, what gives you hope?
I talked about one person that took a Path with Art class tonight, and I've had lots of folks that have taken Path with Art classes. And a couple years ago, we didn't know about Path with Art. And every person that goes through and excels and is creating relationships and is joining community gives me hope every day. And the more partners that we have on board, the new art you were talking about in Seattle, all that stuff gives me hope.
Art gives you hope. That's excellent. Jackie, how about you? What gives you hope?
The resiliency of the human spirit. Just knowing that someone who may call us, who has no reason to trust us, who have no reason with all their experience, that they have no reason to reach out, to trust, to feel that someone could help, and you do it anyway, and you do it to connect, and you do it to see that maybe this time will be the time that there's this connection. Maybe this is the time where a piece or part of me begins to heal. And I think that that's one of the reasons why that I got involved with being a social worker as well as being with the DV Hope Line is that maybe, if anything, maybe just at one time when someone decides to hope and dream and connect, that I'll be there. So what gives me hope is that just that resiliency of the human spirit to try and to keep going.
I would give a real big shout out to, we've talked a lot about art and the wonders of art, but big shout out to the folks who are doing the frontline work like Joan and Jackie. Thank you. And Zoe Alderfer Ryan, one of the instigators of Take Heart, You're Not Alone in this project. What gives you hope?
This gives me hope. I look at all of your smiling faces and I think where we started a year ago and what we've achieved together, especially during these times when you see so many people, so many caustic things going on, so much hostility, so much inability to work together, that we can do it and we will do it. And hopefully we can continue to collaborate going forward. So thank you all. I'm awed and honored and just feel fantastic. So this project has exceeded my expectations and it couldn't have happened without you all. So thank you.
Like all good things.
Thank you for having us.
It's a we thing, right? So Tracy, real quick, before I turn it back over to Michelle, what gives you hope?
The way some of us have come together because the last year or two have been challenging. I've hoped that we will build on that.
What a great way to end this wonderful conversation with all you wonderful, fabulous, thoughtful, intelligent women. Thank you. And thank you. Big thanks again to the Frye Art Museum. Michelle Chang, thanks for bringing us into this conversation and for giving us a space to have really the important discussion and explore this topic. Really appreciate it and appreciate the Frye for making this space available.
Mm-hmm.